areas that were near the archaeological site, we monitored to see if anything was coming out of those soil borings. And the soil boring here actually had a layer of shell in it. So we was like, we need to look under there later. Let's cut a hole in the road. So we built that into our plan. The other thing that you can see in this hole, besides how carefully he's excavating it, so he's following the layer down. So that's why the bottom of his unit that he's digging is not level, flat, but is sloped down as he's actually following the natural soil slopes as they go down. All marine shell, and it's all salmon bone. And when we go look in the lab later, you can see some of the stuff that comes out of it. You can still see in this one, especially on the wall over here, little bits of shell. And it's the same kind of stuff. It's marine shell, it's got some salmon bone in it, it's just not as much, and it's not as thick as what we get on the other side of the river. But there are some other things going on in here. Now right now what they're doing is she's drawing the profile, so she's recording all the different layers that are in the unit, so we can figure out the soil history and the site history from that. The other thing that we're doing from all the units in the site is anything that can be radiocarbon dated. There's lots of material. The charcoal, the bone itself, and also the shellfish can all be radiocarbon dated. So we've taken numerous samples. We'll get a bunch of dates back from a lab weeks after we're done here. The soil here actually cleans out really fast. It's just really sandy stuff. It just boom, it goes right through. So that everything that's left in the screen for the most part is cultural. So it's things that people brought onto the site. And what we're seeing a lot of is shellfish and salmon bone, and not much else. But one of the things you'll notice as you get further from the river is there's much less shell and salmon bone, and that makes sense. But you can still see this dark layer in here that's got little flecks of white in it. It goes all the way around the unit. That's that same layer that you're seeing all the way across to the river. It's just thinned out as they're coming this way. And what's interesting is in this unit, further away from the river, we're getting different kinds of things in here. So this unit actually had some large mammal bone in it, and we think harbor seal, and also had a piece of elk antler that was part of a woodworking tool. And we've got that in the, and so different kinds of things coming out here. And even this big rock that's just sticking out of the side of the unit, that big rock did not get there by itself. When you look at how fine-grained all the sediments are in the unit, all the water-carried stuff in here is really fine and small. That rock's right in the layer that has all the artifacts and stuff in it. So people brought that rock in here either to use as a tool or as part of a fireplace or to use for boiling water, but it hasn't been used for boiling water yet. When rocks get used for boiling water, they fracture in some really kind of pretty distinctive ways, and we'll see some of those when we look in the lab. We don't think this is a village location, so there's not going to be longhouses, people living year-round. What we think is it's a fishing camp. So during the salmon run, they come down, set up a camp on the river, set their nets or their weir, pull out literally thousands of salmon. It's similar as to what happens now. Pull out literally thousands of salmon, but then they process them there. So they're probably preparing them for drying, setting up drying racks, smoking them right on the riverbank, and that's where all the bone. And then the shellfish is probably not a big part of what's going on. But while they're fishing and smoking salmon and doing all the other things they have to do with fishing, they're probably, there's shellfish there, they're probably just eating shellfish and tossing them aside when they're done, because, I mean, they've got so much salmon, you gotta eat something else every once in a while. So there's probably other things going on. There's the little bag that it was in, and what you can see in here, after it's gone through the screen, there's not much in there except for shell, a lot of salmon bone, and charcoal, and then these little round pebbles that are probably coming with the shellfish. And that is about all that's in there, period. So the little round bones, those are salmon vertebrae. The long bones, those are fish ribs of one kind or another. There may be other species of fish in here, but right now it looks like a lot of salmon. And then the purple colored shellfish is marine mussel, which is a lot of the really broken up stuff in there, really fragile. And so then this is laid out on the tray and it's air dried. It's basically rock that's been thermally shocked. And so to be thermally shocked, it's got to be heated and cooled rapidly. That can happen in a fire, but it also happens when you heat a rock and drop it into water to try and get the water to boil. So Native Americans here did not have pottery cooking pots. They had watertight baskets, they had wooden boxes that were watertight, and the way you get the water to boil in those is you heat up rocks in a fire and drop them in until the water boils. The rocks get heated up and dropped in over and over again, and they end up looking like that when they're done. So that was just a nice round beach cobble at one point, and it's been busted up and turned into this, what we call FMR. So there's a fair amount of that here as well. And so this is elk antler. It's been cut off at both ends, and then both ends of it are socketed or hollowed out. And so what you have is a wooden handle coming in one end of the socket, and then a stone blade, like an adze or an axe blade, on the other end of the socket. And this is the connecting piece. And we know that because we've seen this kind of artifact a bunch of times, and people were using these in historic times for the same stuff. So this is a part of a fairly elaborate woodworking tool. So the kind of thing you would use to carve with or shape a canoe, build a house, fix your boxes, you know, that kind of stuff. One of the things we're learning, I mean, we learned that there's a lot of continuity. So the kind of activities, the kinds of tools, even the kinds of resources that people were using when the first settlers came, you know, 200 years ago. And the kinds of things that people were using, the kind of resources they were utilizing 1,000 years ago. A lot of the information that we're going to get out of this site hasn't happened yet because they haven't finished sorting the artifacts, counting things, analyzing the shellfish. But we're going to get information about what kind of shellfish naturally occurred in this part of the Duwamish 1,000 years ago. We're going to get information about salmon species and size of those fish. We're going to get information about flooding in the valley. So we're going to get a lot of natural environmental information as well, not just about the people. What the people do is they focus that data. They gather it, they put it in a big pile for us, and they've made it easier to find. But also we are interested in the people. And what we've got on a site like this, which is really a seasonal camp of some sort, it's really hard to see the people. You know, it's really hard to see, you know, who are they? You know, we do see the continuity, and we do know from oral tradition the Duwamish people have an oral tradition that talks about geologic events and things occurring in the Duwamish River Valley, very specific locations in the Duwamish River Valley that go back thousands of years. So there's no reason to suspect that we're not talking about the exact same people 1,000 years ago, or their ancestors actually, not the exact same people, but their ancestors of the same people that were here when the first European settlers showed up.